take away the joy of homeschooling, because it can. All of that, if we give too much to that, it really can take away the joy. We all have that advice that we hear over and over again, especially as moms, that just makes us cringe. And I know you have it too. We all have it. Here's mine. First is for the advice for young moms / homeschool moms, or both. That advice is, you know what? You have small kids, your life is chaotic, you homeschool, that is its own full-time job. You can't do it all, and so you just have to let your house go and just be okay with that for now. I heard that advice, and again, I feel like it's very well-meaning, very well-intentioned, but there's a couple issues here. So first, let me just say, I did apply that to my life. I was like, I said, you know what, I've got little kids, we homeschool, and so that's not my priority. We can't spin all the plates. That's just gonna have to go to the wayside. So you know what happens? One day goes by, and then another day, and then by like day 3, it's like, oh, should we go ahead and call the crew of hoarders to come on in and do an episode on you? And obviously, I know nobody is saying just have your house go to complete shambles and go by the wayside. But for me, I realized 2 things. So first, it was that I'm very visually stimulated, and so if it's like my house is a total chaos and mess, like it really does affect me. Even if everything else is going okay in the day, it bothers me. And then once we take a couple minutes and straighten it up, it's like, it's so much better. And I know everybody prefers to have a clean environment over a not clean environment, right? But some people are more sensitive to it than others. Now, let me just say, my house is not perfect. I am not staying up till midnight to wash the dishes just so that I can go to bed with a clean sink. Like, I'm not about that. But at a certain point, like, I do prefer and realize that about myself. It took many years to realize that that is something that that does affect me and does bother me. And knowing that, I can put more emphasis on, okay, I realize that having things in order and not a whole lot of clutter around really, really helps me mentally so that I can be a better mom, wife, etc. And I do try to pray for peace for when things aren't going great and things things fall by the wayside and life happens. And the second thing is knowing that I would have intense guilt around any bouts of, like, if I took designated time to clean my house. Like, when I remember that my baby, when she's 8 months old, when she was just a couple months old, I would devote a couple hours once a week to just getting everything cleaned up, vacuumed, mopped, and I would feel so guilty. Like, why aren't you holding your baby? Even though I held her all the other, 24/7, all the other days and everything, I felt so guilty. It's the days are going by so fast. She's only little this once. Why are you spending time? Just let it go. And so anytime I would have that, and sometimes I still do, like, why are you vacuuming? You should be reading with your children. And I would say most of us are doing all of that. Again, most of you are homeschoolers. So we're spending a lot of time with our children, and it's okay to take a little bit of time for a good environment. It's setting a good example to them of keeping a tidy home. And I think we're supposed to be good stewards of what we've been given and taking care of things. Now, I don't think we should go and be obsessed about it. I do think we should all work together as a team and have our children help out and everything like that. But there's nothing wrong with recognizing that you are sensitive to your environment. And if that is something that you prefer, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think that you just have to, well, my kids are little, so, or I homeschool, so, what can you do? I don't think you just have to, like, throw in the towel and just, you're relegated to just a life of chaos just because those things happen. And I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of times, snuggle with your babies. They're only little this once. The house and laundry can wait, and you homeschool. So just let the house go to whatever it's going to happen. Your focus is homeschool, and you can still homeschool and not necessarily have a perfect house, but keep up with things. And if that's you and you feel guilt about that, please don't feel any guilt about that. The second piece of advice, I don't hear this quite as often as I do the first piece. You hear that, you're bombarded with that from like the moment you're pregnant with your first baby. You hear that. But the second piece, I hear it enough that I'm like, oh, okay. So it all sounds great in theory. And I hope this works for some people. It does not work for me, and I don't see it working for many people. And that is choose 3 things to do a day. If you're a Christian, you are, doing your devotions or Bible reading every day. We should try to get in some sort of exercise and movement. Again, if you want to not have your house completely in shambles, we should probably do something in our house every day, not cleaning top to bottom, but something as far as maybe kitchen sink dishes, laundry, that's gonna get piled up. So we have to take care of that at some point. Dinner, unfortunately, everybody wants to eat. As much as I'd love to just give everyone peanut butter and jelly, that's probably not very wise to do. So dinner has to be done. And then homeschool, right? Because we are homeschoolers here. Most of us are homeschoolers. On top of playing with your children, reading to them, spending time with your spouse, paying bills, doing groceries, running errands, getting kids clothes and shoes, and all the other things. And so it can be very overwhelming, very overstimulating. So I hear this advice quite a bit, and it's choose 3 things to do. That's it. And then you'll be fine. And so when I heard that as an overwhelmed mother, I was like, oh, that's actually very good advice. I really like that. Let me just write down my 3 things to do. And when I get to those, that'll be that. And if nothing else happens, that's fine. I just chose those 2 things to do. So follow me here. I got up in the morning and I did my devotions and my Bible reading because that's very important. I need to do that. That helps center me and ground me. So I did my workout. It wasn't an hour, but it's enough for endorphins and all that. Cannot miss homeschooling because obviously that is what I do throughout the week. Okay, so that's my 3 things. Now, when it comes to dinner, sorry, you guys, I've already done my 3 things for the day. I hope you weren't too hungry. Laundry, yeah, that was not part of my 3 things. The dishes are a mess. We're not going and running any errands. And I'm sure you can kind of get where I'm coming from. Well, that sounds great. And I think that is helpful. Sometimes if you are, for a day or 2, you're like, I have so many things to do. What are my top 3 things of this day that have to get done? I understand that can be beneficial for a very hectic, couple days or something like that, just to kind of get you through. But to live like that, I don't know that that's necessarily helpful. As much as I love to encourage people, I'm just going to be truthful. None of us are getting away with doing 3 things a day every day. The reality is, as much as I would love for that to be true and effective, that is just not true. We are busy. Our jobs are hard. They are hard. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean we can't do it. I'm just saying that, to be realistic, to be real about this is what life looks like. This is what this season of life looks like. Maybe later on, things will be a little bit less busy. And I just think it is setting people up for, wait a second, how does this person get that all done? And they only do a couple things a day. But me, I'm trying to do all of what they look like they're doing. But it's just, you know what I'm saying? It just isn't, it's going to set people up for unrealistic expectations. And so that's why. I'm not saying you can't do 3 things a day. I'm just saying that it could be very disappointing if you realize that's what your goal is, and then you're like getting behind on everything else because there's a lot more to do in a day. And then the last thing is kind of like an umbrella, but I'm just going to give a couple examples. So my overall thing is when you hear this, it's just this fluffy, floofy, vague advice with no application, no follow-up, no even really explanation. It's just these beautiful sounding, poetic pieces of advice that are thrown out there. And like, what does that mean? So there's a couple things. For example, the first one is when you homeschool, it's all about the relationship with your kids. And, are you focusing more on academics over your relationship with your kid? What does that mean though? That sounds great. And while I'm not saying I disagree with that, I'm also like realistically, like, what does that mean? Can you please give an explanation and a follow-up, an example? Does that mean that you don't want to harm your relationship with your child, so you won't have them, whatever, do math when they're upset? I don't know. I'm just surmising, right? So like we don't, if we're upset, like I say, let's cool down and come back to it. But that doesn't mean we just toss out the books and just, okay, we won't do that anymore. And I don't think most homeschool moms are saying, okay, you don't want to do math, sweetheart? Okay, we won't do math. I don't understand that. And I think it has that counter advice again, is like, you take that advice and you hear the, we don't want to, ruin our relationship with our kid or prioritize academics over our relationship. So we kind of can go on the other end of things and feel guilt, like, oh no, I'm making my child do math, and is this going to damage our relationship? And I know I am sounding very sassy and very sarcastic right now, but I don't know what that means. And I know most of you, if you really think about it, if it was explained, I'd be like, okay, or given an example or details. But like, realistically, I think most of us love our kids. We want the relationship with our kids. That's why we're homeschooling. I said most of us. I hope all of us love our children and want that relationship. And if that's not what that means, if it means something else, please let me know in the comments. The second one of those is, again, this vague advice. When you are disciplining your child, make sure that you're disciplining for their heart. If they're going through something, is this a heart issue? You want to see if that's a heart issue. Well, yes, of course it's a heart issue. Like, again, the vague, like, okay, so what does that look like? How am I supposed to fix that? And I know there's books and there's resources out there that do discuss that. And there are people who are, but again, a lot of times you hear these little bombs from like, YouTube, Instagram, other just homeschool moms, Facebook, the mom groups on Facebook, like, oh, just make sure you're getting to their heart of things. Okay, please tell me, again, an example of what that looks like. I've kind of looked into it deeper, and I'm sure, hopefully you have too. But if you haven't and you're kind of new to that, you're like, what does that even, what are you talking about? And it's just so vague. And again, most of these are not ever followed up with an example of, well, have you done this? What does this look like when you've done that? Please, I'd love to know. And I'm truly not even being sarcastic about that. Like, I want an example. And then the last one, and there's a lot of them. I just thought of a couple. Let me know down in the comments which ones you hear all the time that you're just like, kind of, you scratch your head. You hear this, well, we homeschool because we want to foster a love for learning and create an environment for learning, and we don't want to squash that, and we have to do all we can to foster that love of learning. Okay, again, I feel like I'm so repetitive, but it's true. Like, okay, like personally, for example, we're running into an issue with one of my children who does not like math. And I was like, well, what would you like to do? Just not have math, period? Like, just go through math or through life when you just aren't going to do it anymore? Like, I'm sorry. I love you, but this is something that has to get done. And she's not necessarily going to just love it. And we can choose different curriculum, and I'm an advocate for doing that, by the way. Try to, that kind of will match their style, their learning style and personality, and something they want to do. But not every child is going to love writing or science or history or reading or any of that. Some children aren't going to love academics that way. Well, then it means like foster their love for learning for what they do love, their hobby, which I understand. But please don't feel like a failure if your kids don't love every subject and you are having them do that anyway. You're not messing up the relationship, okay? You're not damaging their love for learning. And I know people are going to be upset when they hear this. Like, that's not true. It is. It's okay. It's okay. We, I think we all just need to calm down a little bit and trust that God gave us our children. Again, I look at things from a Christian perspective. God gave us our children. If you are in relationship with Him, if you are going to Him for school and for your family and all of that, He will show you what needs to be done. He will show you areas of improvement. He will work on that in your life. So don't worry about all this other stuff. That is where we need to be going to. Not that, you can't listen to anybody else. You can, but please don't let all that advice and voices that we hear and, hopefully we're not hearing voices, but you know what I mean. All of the voices on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all of that, in our co-ops or wherever we're hearing these, just take away the joy of homeschooling, because it can't. All of that, if we give too much to that, it really can take away the joy. And that is not what that is supposed to be. I'm going to wrap this up here. If you stuck around this long, thank you. And again, let me know in the comments, what is some advice that you hear over and over that you're just like, that sounds great, and I'm sure you mean well, but no, that's probably not great advice. All right, you guys, I appreciate you being here. I know there's so many other places you could be watching, and I appreciate you being here watching my little videos. It means the world to me. I hope you have a good day. Bye.